I got a call this morning or an email this morning from a guy in my program who um, was asking me a question, and I replied back, and he's like, I just got called into an officer involved shooting. He said, so I can't get back to you right now. I'm like, okay, first off, how's the officer? He was okay. All officers involved, he said, were okay. I'm like, okay, what's your game plan going in? And the thing about this is that I have a plan. If my husband ever had to be involved in a shooting at work. Um, and so I have this whole plan laid out on how I would do things for him um, from a physical stress perspective. And I was actually going to share this in my program group, but I thought I should share it with you guys here too, because you guys all need this. So the first thing is just asking you, do you have a plan? And I hear most often that most don't, because you're going to deal with it. If it happens, then you'll figure it out. But the thing is there's certain things that if it happens to you, this could be anything. It could be any traumas that happen at work. If there is a big incident, if there is a big trauma, there are certain things that you can be doing beforehand to prep, while like post incident, and then a month, 6 months, a year later. And so I I wanted to bring this to you guys. So it's for any traumas. This is fire, EMS, corrections, you guys, all of you guys. It's not just for police. All of you should be having things like this. So first off, tell me in the comments if you guys do have a plan. Let me know, because that is important, and what you guys do have for your plan. If there's anything that you guys have questions while I'm talking, ask, and after I will answer them all for you. Okay. So the thing is first off is there's certain things to do beforehand, and that's the stuff that we do in our program. That's making sure your stress system is at its strongest so you can get out of your stress state quick. But the thing is that most of you haven't gone through my program, so you're not at that point, and that's okay. So the thing is what we're going to talk about right now is in the moment, and what to do within weeks, and then what to do within months. So I wrote this down. I've got notes and stuff. So in the moment, as soon as you can get to your colleagues, or as soon as this is happening to you, you guys do talk about, I know a lot of you, I know RCMP in Canada is huge on breathing. There's a lot of different units. You guys are huge on box breathing. I know fire does box breathing. So the thing with breathing is you guys are all really trained how to do it when you're in a scenario, but the training doesn't always extend after the incident is finished, when you're post. So I want to explain to you why breathing is so important. So you have a nerve right on your left nostril that touches the sinus cavity. So when you're breathing through your nose, you're actually touching that nerve, and that is the nerve that switches you from that hypervigilant mode into a calm mode. So afterwards, what's going to happen post incident is anytime that you start thinking about that incident again, you're most likely going to kick into that stress system again. But because you're not in the situation where your training usually has you kicking that in, then you don't tend to use it outside of that. So if there's anybody, like if you're going up to a colleague, sit there and breathe with them. Make sure that they're filling their belly up with air and they're breathing through their nose. Another thing that I would probably do if it is a colleague is go onto your phone. Let me see if I have it on here. I usually have it on a tablet in the morning that I use this with. It's called Breathe. I'm on an Android. There's a lot of them on Apple too. And it basically is your breathing patterns. So if you have anybody that is in still that shock, you'll notice that if they start breathing through their mouth, they're switching into that hypervigilant state again. They're switching into that other nervous system. We need to keep switching them back. So I oh, I do have it on here. So what this does is, I'll show you, is I don't know if you guys can see, or let me see if I can move this. So if you guys can see this, it actually does your counts of your breaths here. I don't know if you, there, you can see where it goes up, hold, and it goes in and holds and then out. So that is a really, really good tool, because when somebody is in that state, they cannot get out of it. It's something for them to focus on, so it gets their brain out of thinking about whatever incident just happened, and they can actually start working at getting themselves into that resting system. So if you guys, if this is one of your colleagues or something, just pull this onto your phone. It's free. Breathe. Apple, there's tons of them. Just plug in Breathe or Breath. It could be Breath on Apple, and do that with them. The other thing is water. So water is really huge. If you make sure that they're getting water in, your digestive system shuts off when you are in a stress state. When you are chasing a bear, fighting a lion, doing any of that, your body doesn't need to stop and eat a meal. So you actually shut down your digestion. So you make sure that you get water. And then food. When you are in a critical incident, I don't know how it is at every service, but I know how it is at my husband's, that after a critical incident, they're separated, all the officers are separated, and they have to sit there and wait until all their statements are done, all their reports are done, all of these things. And that takes hours and hours. And when you're doing that, when you're in a stressed state, your body is pumping out blood sugars and pulling them back. And it's also getting you into this high cortisol zone. So you're really burning a lot of calories as well. And if you can get them to eat a meal, they're most likely going to say they're not hungry, because when you're in a stressed state, you don't stop to eat a meal. So give them something that they can, like, actually get yourself a meal as well, and sit with them. Sit with them, do the breathing first to start getting their stomach to turn on, sit with them, and eat with them. Every bite that you take too slow, eat with them. If you're able to. I know sometimes they separate you guys, but it depends on every station. If you can, get them to eat, because their brain needs it, their body needs it in order to process everything that they need to do post-incident for all of your reports and stuff. So then that gets into what I would do next with my husband, and that is EMDR therapy. Now, EMDR, many of you may know. If you do, if any of you know of successes, type them in the comments so that more people will see this, that they'll understand how important EMDR therapy is. So EMDR is where it desensitizes. The D is desensitizing your retinas, and it desensitizes you to traumas. So even if my husband said he was fine, in the first week, I would actually have him in an EMDR to see an EMDR after any trauma at all that he experienced on the job. And that will just, even if he had any small things, because sometimes what happens I can talk about your physical stress system. I don't know about the mental side of things, but I'll explain how your physical system does react after. Is if you keep switching into, your body doesn't know the difference between actually being in a stress state or when your mind is perceiving a stress state. So anytime that you are reliving that trauma, be it small, be it just a small part of it, even if it's not affecting you that much, but you're thinking about it sometimes, it's shifting you into that stress nervous system. And when that stress nervous system keeps going and going, it starts eventually doing some damage to your nerves. And in PTSD, there is a lot of nerve struggles. It can start actually shutting down the nerves that are around your diaphragm. Those ones are unmyelinated. Unmyelinated is like, take a a wire and take the rubber coating off the wire. That is unmyelinated. Usually your nerves have a protective shield on them, but they don't around your diaphragm, which is why when you're breathing too, we get you to fill that gut up with air, because it actually stimulates those nerves, which with a lot of PTSD cases that shuts off. So EMDR therapy is a huge, EMDR is something that I would highly suggest. Dan, yeah, EMDR. Yeah, you can totally process things that you've suppressed. And the closer that you can do it to the trauma, the better. I have a gentleman that I just did a video with last week who EMDR was not working on him. He could not get it to work. And the thing is he was 23 years post his first PTSD treatment or PTSD diagnosis. He had so many, he'd been left for dead twice on the job, and urinated on after somebody had thought he was dead. He had so many different traumas in his career. And when he did get to the point of trying EMDR, learning about it, and all of that, it wasn't working on him. We suspect, him and I, it's because his stress system was so taxed. We have worked really super hard on getting his stress system underway, that now he's working with a therapist that specializes in traumas, and he's making amazing headway with her. And as soon as he can do like face to face with somebody in where he's living, he's actually going to be going back to EMDR to try it. I have others as well who have struggled with EMDR, and once we've strengthened their stress system, then they've made headways in it. So the thing is as soon after a trauma, within a week, 2 weeks, if there's any trauma, go book an EMDR session and start doing some EMDR to process that trauma. It can be anything with you guys. It could be deaths that are happening. It could be things that are happening in your personal lives as well that can actually be triggering things that EMDR can help. So don't take it from me. Anybody who has experienced it, please put it in the comments so that people can see, because the more of us that are spreading the word as to how good it is, the better. So try to get them into EMDR. Trauma therapists. Now, here's the thing about trauma therapists is there are many different trauma therapists. There are specialized trauma therapists that deal with military and first responders. That is who you want to be looking for. Don't just go to anybody who says that they are a trauma therapist, because there's been many experiences I've been told where people have gone to therapists just with their, like the Crisis Mental Health Center sent them to a therapist for people who have PTSD. But he went in and he started talking about his traumas, and he said the therapist, their mouth is agape and saying, I don't know what to do with you. I've had another person who, a therapist, actually started tearing up at the things that they were being told. So make sure that they are a first responder or military trained trauma therapist, because they are going to actually understand what you were dealing with. If there are some actually that are former officers, former first responders, former firefighters that are. So with them, they are, I've heard amazing things about going to them, because they truly get what it's like to be in your shoes and to make those decisions. So that's what I would do with my husband within a week or two post incident. And then what you do a month to a year later with your colleagues, anybody, you guys should be doing this all of the time. There are lists that I have. If you go to the unit section, there's a burnout and overdrive checklist. Go through it and start checking to see if you are starting to get any of those symptoms, and if or your colleagues are. There are, I know gut, quite often with gut, when we dig into gut, as soon as somebody tells me they have like really bad gut issues where they are a lot of diarrhea, a lot of, or major constipation, or both, then I quite often ask them when it started, and a year or two before that, did an incident happen that they still recall tremendously? And quite often there's a link. So start looking at your gut issues. So if you do, so the incident that I was talking about this morning with the officer shooting, find out, like, in a year or so, do they start having gallbladder issues, kidney stones? Do they start having blood pressure, cholesterol issues? Short fuse, anger, getting sick more often, less motivation and drive, sleep. Are they more tired and wired? Are they waking mid-sleep more? Exhaustion, is their sleep less? Brain fog is a huge one too. Are the reports getting worse? Like, is this somebody? So that's somebody too. If you guys are in a supervisory position, if you have somebody whose reports aren't great and you know they've been on the job for 10, 12, 15 years, start asking around or finding out what their reports used to be like. Because if their reports used to be really, really good, then that is telling you that they're struggling with short-term memory, that they're struggling to remember the details, that they have the brain fog. So these are really key indicators for you guys. Go to that burnout and overdrive list. I have other ones too. First, might be the first responder toolbox, or there's a couple of good ones in there. I think the family one, go to the one called family guilt. It gives a really, really good list of things that you might be seeing in your family, in your own home, because a lot of these things show up at home. The short fuse, easily frustrated, needing to control things at home, the anxiety, hypervigilance, not being good with your family, going out and doing things, that a lot of times hits you like months after an incident, could be a year after an incident. And like I said, your nerves are affected, and it starts really affecting your nervous system and shifting you really quickly into that stress system. Quite often it also then throws off the 50 different hormones that your stress system is responsible for. So it's really, really important. Yeah, I wrote things down here. Allergies is another one. If you start having allergies to different foods, different reactions, if you're having skin allergies, if your moods, if you start getting more flashbacks, allergies too, it could be things like getting hives. It could be psoriasis, starting to get psoriasis, eczema, all kinds of different things like that. So really take note as to what signs your body is telling you that it is in a stress state. If you're seeing this in anybody, I know there's people at my husband's work that have needed to have special consideration because they can't be on the road because of their gut and their digestive system. That is total stress, absolute stress. That's your nerves, that's your hormones, and your gut. Your gut is responsible for 90% of your serotonin production. And if your nerve that is always putting you in the stress system shuts off your gut, then you can't be producing that serotonin. So that anxiety, the depression people are feeling, low motivation and drive, is quite often because your systems in your body are starting to shut down. So it's really, really important to understand that changing a diet is not going to fix it. Going to the gym is not going to fix it. We have to really dig into the root cause of your hormones, your nervous system, and your gut. We have like, I know there's people that are on keto, that keto is amazing. Going, there's so many different diets that help with these things, but if you're not creating stomach acids because your gut has shut down, then you can't digest the meats, and it causes more constipation, which you're probably experiencing because of the stress. So really making sure that all of these things are in check with you if you're post-incident, but also checking in on colleagues. These are things too, if you're in a supervisory role, these are things that you can actually do checklists. I think the checklist, if I'm going from memory, in the family guilt, go to the unit section to the family guilt one. I think that has a really good checklist. If you guys, I know it's called parade for the police here. I don't know what it's called for fire guys, I'm sorry, or for EMS, but when you're in your parade in the morning, if you guys go through that checklist, you don't have to get people to put their hands up because they're probably not going to. But if every single day you go through the checklist of these are physical stress symptoms that your body's telling you from the shift work, the overtime, and the calls you've been going to, keep a note of them. The more that you tell them these every single week, or at like the first day of your start of your block of shifts or something, the more that will go to it. Dan, yeah, you're switching to a health gut diet. I'd like to dig into that with you a little bit because I'm a little curious if it's actually fixing the gut, or is it just eliminating foods that bother the gut? Because those are two different things as well. So if it's fixing the gut, if that's good, if it's getting if it's fixing your small stomach lining, if it's getting your acids back up, if it's healing leaky gut, and getting your bacteria all back in place with SIBO and that, then that would be amazing. And I really hope that that's what it's doing, but I don't know of that happening with the diet. So if it is something that's being done alongside of it, that is phenomenal. And I'm so excited that you guys are doing this because I know your history, and man, if that will help you, that's amazing. So really working on all of this stuff is so important, and being aware of it, just really being aware of the signs. So I'm just going to recap what I just went over with this. So when you're in the moment, crisis, post incident, it's the breathing, the water, and the food. And then if you're within weeks, it's the EMDR or the trauma therapy in order to process it right away. The faster that you can get in there and process it, the faster you can deal with it and be done with the treatments. And then every about a month up to a year, really start looking at the symptoms that start creeping in for you. Okay. So if you guys have any questions for this, let me know. As a supervisor, making sure that all of your guys have this in check is so key to making sure, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't happen right in the moment. There's stuff that happens post. So if you're starting to need to do certain accommodations for people, if you notice somebody's booking off sick quite often, if you're noticing that their reports aren't good, or you're noticing that they're starting to get more frustrated with their colleagues, or they're not on calls they used to be really, really on, and now they're struggling to solve things on calls. So really take a note of all of this. And oh, vegan's great, Dan. Vegan's awesome. There's nothing absolutely wrong with vegan. It's more about really just making sure you're getting all the gut healing as well with it. So yeah, just make sure that your guys are taken care of. Make sure that you're taken care of. Anybody has any questions on this, let me know. And I know that too, not everybody likes putting things in the comments because you want to keep things private. Just PM me, or you can email me, support@911lifestyle.com. Everything is confidential. We are not at all associated with a service. So I want to let you guys know that, because everything stays between us. Okay. So keep those comments in the section, or message me, and I will help you guys as best as I can. Okay. Be safe.